I am the Supportive Housing Outreach Coordinator for Lakeshore Community Action Program. You're watching this video because you signed up to be a volunteer in the January 2021 Sheboygan County Point-in-Time Homeless Count. This count is conducted throughout the nation by a variety of different agencies that receive funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. This count is meant to be a snapshot of what homelessness might look like in any specific community on one given night. We also utilize this count to provide those who we might find that are experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity with valuable resources that might be able to help remove them from that situation. This count is generally conducted throughout the last 10 days in January, which might be a little bit different based on where you are in the nation. But most of Wisconsin for January 2021 is participating in this count from the evening of January 27th until the early morning hours of January 28th. In Sheboygan County, we'll have two different options for you to sign up. These two shifts that we are offering are from 11 p.m. on January 27th until 1 a.m. on January 28th, and then 4 a.m. on January 28th to 6 a.m. on January 28th. During this time, you will be going out, trying to see if you can find anybody who's experiencing homelessness, and if you do, providing them with some resources and hygiene products. A few tips. Know that individuals are sleeping at night. Potentially try to say hello and just see if they might be still awake, but don't force them awake. Another one, if somebody is awake, smile. You're likely the only person who has smiled in a while at them. Don't give up money. If you feel unsafe in a situation, do not proceed in that situation, go back to your car. We are also recommending some COVID safety precautions for 2021, of course, because we are in a pandemic. So that being said, we are highly encouraging most of our volunteers to either do observation-only counts, and even in that observation-only count, you would still be dropping off a backpack, which contains resources as well as hygiene products. Or if you do really want to talk to somebody, we are not going to include the entire unsheltered survey, only because it is extensive. It does last about an hour, and we don't want, even if there is direct contact, for it to be an extended period of time. It's unsafe kind of for everybody, unsafe for volunteers, unsafe for individuals who are homeless, and people who are homeless do suffer disease at a higher rate. So if they do contract COVID, it would likely be pretty devastating. So we want to be safe with what we're doing that evening, especially for those individuals who are unsheltered. And when we're talking about unsheltered, we're talking about our individuals that you see sleeping in places not meant for human habitation. For example, in a car, or in a park, or let's say they're just sleeping on the side of a building, or in a storage unit. Those are the types of places we're talking. We're not talking about shelters. We do receive a shelter count that we do provide to the government, and we just ask the shelters for those numbers. So if you do come into contact with somebody, like say early in the morning or something, or they're coming back from work and they're somehow going into the shelter later or something like that, and they do say they're homeless, but they're going into the shelter because they're coming back from something like that, that is not a person that you would contact. So anyway, we'll get onto it a little bit. In this video, we'll just kind of go through maybe some safety pointers, what to do if you encounter somebody, what you'll receive during the count, what kind of paperwork there is, what might be kind of in these, handy dandy backpacks that we'll be providing to individuals. Yeah, so it's kind of some tips first off. You might be the only person that person is seeing that night. They're probably a little scared. You can imagine sleeping outside. It's a pretty traumatic experience. So make sure if you are approaching somebody, like we said, we encourage you not to approach somebody for a long period of time. But if you are just going to ask somebody if they're awake, and you are going to ask them if they're experiencing homelessness, We encourage you to smile, obviously. Offer resources, just be wise, use common sense. If you feel uncomfortable, if you're getting an uncomfortable feeling and you have a gut instinct, get in your car. You do not need to approach that person. But what we do want is that if you do see somebody homeless, awake or asleep, so if you see somebody sleeping and they are homeless, either way, to provide them with a backpack that does have the resources and the hygiene products. So this year, one of our COVID safety precautions is obviously, like I said, not to complete that entire unsheltered survey. Instead, we will be having an observation only count. What that means is there is an observation form that asks you a few specifics about like the environment that an individual is in at that time. It does ask you, like it just asks for you to give as much detail as possible. So in the past, sometimes we have gotten like those observation forms back and they just don't have enough detail for us to be able to count somebody. So what we want to know is we want to really know like where is that person, what are their sleeping arrangements look like? Like if they're in a car, what kind of car is it? What color is it? And what location is the car? Is it at the Southside Walmart? We also want to know, potentially if the person's a male or female, why do you think they're homeless? Are they just walking around in the middle of the night? Or do you actually see them sleeping on the ground in the middle of the night? We do encourage individuals to, potentially say, if you do see somebody who's sleeping, potentially say hi and see if maybe they are still awake, but also don't bother the person too much because they are sleeping, they are trying to get their rest. And I think when anybody is kind of awakened in the middle of the night, it's a little bit terrifying, so we don't want to scare anybody. If you are concerned about somebody, please do call the police if you see something that really concerns you. Don't hesitate to. However, most of the time if somebody's just sleeping, we should just allow them to sleep. We don't want to interrupt that sleep that is pretty valuable to somebody who might be sleeping in a place not meant for human habitation. All right. Let's see what we've got here. The other thing is, this is an outdoor count. Not everybody needs to go outdoors. You should be signed up in a group of at least 2 people. We encourage 3. If you have more, that's fine. It's your volunteer opportunity. But people who are in your bubble, I guess, per se. For example, like family members or friends that you might see fairly often. So, hopefully you are in that group and hopefully you feel confident. But since this is an outdoor count, it is kind of in the cold, please dress comfortable. Wear tennies or comfortable shoes, leggings, sweatshirts, jackets, whatever you might need, regardless of whether we do have to conduct this count. I know not all volunteers are going to be able to go out even, if the weather does get really bad, and that, is understandable. We hope we get as many as possible to assist us, but, we know it's not always going to happen that everybody's going to be able to continue to do a count if weather is really inclement. But us as agencies are required to continue to do the count regardless. Please bring flashlights. Flashlights are important, especially when you're going out in the dark, just to try and make sure that you're seeing your surroundings. Please be aware of your surroundings. Just try to listen a little bit more, look around a little bit more, use your senses a little bit more. Just because, like I said, we want you to continue to be safe. Right. We will. So what happens now is you sign up, you're doing this training. Like I said, if you get a bad feeling, you think something's off, do not hesitate to call the police, but give reason why you have that bad feeling. Observation forms give as much detail as possible, but also say why you think that person's homeless. Did they tell you they were homeless? Are they sleeping when you saw them? Were they sleeping in the park? We need to know. We can't just assume that we see somebody walking around at 12:30 at night that they're homeless. We need to have an idea as to why they are homeless. So, which is a little tricky when it comes to observation only, I know that. So, you are welcome to ask individuals, you know, like, hey, I see that you're out in the middle of the night. You know, we're looking for individuals who are experiencing housing insecurity. Might that be you? And to also give them a backpack and have a really brief conversation. We just aren't encouraging that, you know, long exposure direct contacts this year. So, what we're having everybody do is to call our office the 2 weeks before the count. So that would be, let's go ahead and say from the 13th up until the 27th. And to set up a time to pick up, we're gonna do everything virtual. We're gonna try and be as safe as possible and the least amount of people coming into one spot as possible. So to set up a time to pick up those backpacks that I was talking about, but then you're also gonna receive a folder. And this folder, so this is just one I randomly grabbed, will have some information inside. So what it's going to have is it will have a map for a route that you're assigned. And then along with the map, it will have, let me just find this really quick, a list of specific locations where we have potentially found homeless individuals before, places that you might want to look. And then you would write down, first of all, you want to write down your starting mileage on this form, and then your ending mileage. But you want to write down the times you visited each of those places. So we use mileage is kind of the same as your donation time. So it can use as a match. So matches, for example, you know, if we get a certain amount of money from like the state or federal government, they want us to provide a certain money in return to kind of have some skin in the game, so to say. So your mileage is used for that, which means that it's not necessarily something that you should be claiming and then receiving a refund for it, if that makes sense. Feel free to get out of your cars and look around, definitely. But like I said, kind of be safe and stay a little bit of a distance from others who may not be in that bubble that you're working with that night. You can add additional information at the bottom of this form about points that you might find somebody if they're not on here, or you think that somebody might be in for their next count. Also at the bottom, feel free to also write, you know, if you have ideas for other pick counts to run, you know, like new ideas about, you know, what may have been good for you or what may have been bad for you during the count and volunteering. We want to know, we want that feedback, and we want to, you know, really work with our volunteers to make it the best experience possible. So yes, you will have that map, and this map will be obviously of the same area that these locations are in. It just kind of helps guide you around, of course. You will also have some of those unsheltered observation forms, so the forms that just ask you some questions about, you know, where the person is sleeping. Like I said, give as much detail as possible. We are only providing, again, the observation forms this year and not the extensive unsheltered surveys, because we do not want long-term direct exposure. And these forms look a little bit like this. So they're pink. These are from last year, or from our last count in July, but they may not be pink this year. But they say on the top, you can see observation only. So what it's going to ask for is your name. It's going to ask for the continua name, and we are the Lake Shore, if you want to put that in there. And we might actually just fill that in. I'm not 100% sure. It asks you for about the age and gender and some basic like demographic information of what you might think that person might be. And then just kind of, like I said, making sure you're saying why that person is homeless, and as many details as possible, like, you know, what kind of car were they in? Did they have a specific colored blanket? Anything, any kind of detail that you can provide is helpful. There are some tips as well in the back of the, like, in the back of this, of the inserts that say tips for approaching individuals, like just reminding you to smile, to be conscious of your surroundings, to be aware. One thing that I always say, and I think I kind of said it earlier, is I always say, you know, hi, we're out conducting a point-in-time homeless count tonight. We're looking for individuals who might be experiencing housing insecurity. We're trying to provide them with some resources that might help them. We also have some hygiene products. I always try to make sure that I make a point of letting them know that. And just see if someone's interested, if they are awake. And then even if they're not awake, like I said, we would still just drop off the backpack just to make sure they still have those resources. Let's see. Just want to make sure there's nothing else. Normally the resources are in the folder, but we're going to put them directly in the backpack this year, so you don't have to worry about that, because like I said, we just want you to drop the backpack and kind of remove yourself as quickly as possible. We don't want too much exposure. But we can tell you a little bit about what's in the backpacks, okay? So we have information about our after hours plan. So how, that's not necessarily just after hours, but how to access shelter during daytime hours, but also how to access shelters during the evening hours. We also have information about you know, what shelters might be appropriate for you based on some, you know, specific information, whether you're a family or you're single, just basic demographic information. We have a flow chart for food pantries, so like what food pantries might work for you or be most appropriate for you. We have some basic information. We have like a resource worksheet that kind of breaks down as simply as possible, like what resources are good for housing, what resources are good for healthcare, what resources are good for legal, what resources are good for utilities, things like that. So all of that will be in the backpack. We will also probably, actually I'll show you really quick. On the side, right on the backpacks, what we put on here is we put one of our cards. So they have our contact, so that whoever gets this backpack would have our contact information. But then on the back, we'll either write F or M for male or female. So we do have that as well, just to make it specific. Also inside these folders, I totally forgot to mention, but inside these folders, we will also have, you know, 2 of our employees on each shift, the 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. shift, and then the 6 a.m. to 4 a.m., or sorry, the 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift, kind of out and about. And whoever is on your shift, we will have a card in this folder with their cell phone information. So if you do need anything, you can feel free to call them. We will likely have extra hygiene products or backpacks along with us. Just kind of, you know, depending if there's more routes that we need to do, you know, depending on how many volunteers, we might be working on some of those. Otherwise, we might just be working on trying to help volunteers as much as possible. Just depends on what we have. So inside these backpacks, I'm just gonna kind of go through this really quick, and other than that, I think we have most of it covered. We have, inside the backpacks, we have water bottles. You know, we have things like toothpaste, deodorant. We have pairs of socks. So awesome, Wigwam donated a ton of socks to the United Way of Sheboygan County. So they've been giving socks out to all of our nonprofit agencies, which are especially great for if we find homeless individuals. We do have like waterproof socks, which is awesome. So we will have socks in here, hats, scarves, which were, you know, donated by generous family in Sheboygan here. We also have some blankets. Those aren't going to be directly in here. We only have a couple of those, but you know, we'll kind of have them along in our cars in case we do need them. We also have some kid socks, which we'll have along in our car in case you do need them. So like I said, you can always call whoever is the person on your shift that evening or morning if you do need, you know, anything specific, and just kind of give them a heads up. I'm trying to think. I know there's one other thing. Oh, also, a ton of our backpacks, I just want to give a shout out, a ton of our backpacks, we're kind of are always kind of provided by Rage Fitness, so they rock. Thank you, Rage Fitness. And then we always have, this year we had a few from Big Brothers Big Sisters that they really didn't use because the school year wasn't as, there weren't as many, this wasn't as extensive for the school year, so not as many kids needed backpacks. A lot of kids stayed home, did school virtually, so they had some extra. They do know that, we're gonna give them out to families if we find them and stuff too, so a shout out to all of those places. You guys rock. Thank you for helping us and for our hygiene drive that we do every year, which is coming up actually mid-February, so look for boxes around. Anyways, done with doing shout outs. But all kinds of stuff we have in here. Toothbrushes, we have like smaller shampoos, conditioners, things like that, which we hand out all this stuff throughout the year too. So even if we have extra backpacks, extra hygiene products, we'll give them out throughout the year. So yeah, that is kind of the gist of our point-in-time homeless count. However, if you do have questions, don't hesitate to reach out and ask us and see if there's things that we might be able to help you with beyond that. Like I said, please do call our office, 920-803-6991 to set up a time to kind of pick some of this up. That would also be a great number for you to just call and reach out to if you have more questions. And from there, if email works best for me or whatever it might be, we'll take down your email address and email back and forth, whatever might be best. So thank you so much. We appreciate all of your help. You have no idea how much it helps the community and all you're doing. You're wonderful. Thank you. We will see you on January 27th to the 28th.